Jesus said if a salt has lost flavor, salt is for flavor. On most of our kitchen tables, we have salt and pepper. Pepper changes the flavor of a meal. Salt enhances the flavor of a meal. The important thing to think about when we talk about being salt is our assignment to add flavor. Listen carefully. To add flavor to what already exists in our community. Not all invention, not all creativity, not all beauty, not all medical inventions, not all those things come from believers. By design, many of those things come from unbelievers. Why? Because it rains on the just and the unjust. And if it all came through us, we'd become proud, arrogant, and want to be in charge. It wouldn't be healthy for us. So a huge part of being effective as salt in a culture is that we actually see God's value on the unbeliever before they have placed their faith in him. He gives them ideas. He works through them. I believe we owe every believer 3 levels of honor, at least 3 that I'm aware of, and every human being 2 levels of honor. Number 1, every person's created in the image of God. Every person represents an aspect of God's nature, person, that no one else represents. Created in the image of God. Number 2, every person has been gifted by God to function in life. Now, one may have 5 talents, sums of money. One may have 3, one may have 1. There are varying levels of graces that God assigned to individuals, but every person has been given something. And it's prophetic people. It's people that have a tenderness towards celebrating and valuing other people, if they can see the gifting and the grace that is in that individual, and to be able to affirm it, to acknowledge it, to celebrate what God has actually put in, to be able to say, man, I love how you put colors together. I love how you perceive this yard, how you made it look so beautiful. I love how you seem to connect people. Every time I'm at a dinner at your house, you always put the right people next to the right people in your dinner party. It's just these little things, but it's just it's being intentional to find the treasure that is in somebody else. Salt enhances the flavor that's already there. You go to certain cities in our country, you go to Austin, Texas is a great example. They have a unique music culture there. You know, who decided that? You know, there's some cities where it seems like every furniture manufacturer in the country is in that area, in that region. Who decided this area is for furniture? You know, I don't know who decides that. Somehow somebody gets a breakthrough and they attract other people and they start reveling in the, can I say, anointing or grace that God assigned to a particular area. It's wisdom for us to perceive and to see that which God has designated over a city, over a region, and then sow into it, to honor, to value it, to celebrate, to acknowledge it. You're the salt of the earth. Salt that's lost its flavor. That word flavor there is actually, the losing of flavor is actually the word foolish. Salt without flavor, the original language, is foolish. So what is salt with flavor? It's an easy one. You just look to the other side of the coin. We got one that says foolish. The other side is the opposite. No, you're not going to take the risk. Okay. All right. I realize you don't trust me. That's the bottom line. All right. So salt without flavor is foolish. Salt with flavor is wisdom. It's actually, it's not foolish. There it is. That's the safest answer right there. That's wise. That's wisdom. Yeah. Not foolish. Yeah. So think with me about this. Wisdom is the mind of Christ. Wisdom is the mind of Christ. Wisdom, Jesus, in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, Jesus is the person of wisdom. He is wisdom personified. He is, as we've called, he is perfect theology. He illustrates perfectly the mind of the Father. And so when you and I maintain saltiness, it's because we've maintained a connection to God's purposes and plans in the earth. It's not just, I can give you good counsel on where to invest your money or something. Don't come to me, but just an example, just an illustration. It's not just that. It's the fact that there is a sharp edge on my life that prophetically perceives shifts in seasons and knows how to position for them. When that kind of saltiness is existent in our life, that we live with that kind of intentionality, then the people around you start to savor the flavor that you actually bring to a community. Most of us like to be the salt of the earth, and we think of it this way. It's like the salt shaker. We unscrew the top and we pour the entire contents in the corner of the dinner plate because we like to be together. You don't enhance the flavor of the meal together. This is together. We're in the shaker. We're about to take the lid off in another 20 minutes, and you're going to get sprinkled. There are some of you in certain neighborhoods that you don't even realize it, but the way you do life, your value system, it's not just preaching on a soapbox, it's the way you do life. So prophesize identity and purpose into your community. It is salt. It is you are defining the reasoning of God, the reason of God, the purpose of God behind all of our existence. It's that edginess that helps to keep you in that place of radical influence. So we go to the next verse, and it says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. This may appear rather simplistic, and I get it, but it sends me, it causes me to swirl in a positive way. In May of 1979, a Thursday afternoon, I was walking in the back of the church in Weaverville, because I found if you walk while you pray, you don't fall asleep. And if you do, you wake up suddenly. So I would walk and pray, and it was just my lifestyle. So I had my Bible, and I happened to be reading in Isaiah in that season. And I was reading, I happened to be on chapter 60, and I began to read, "Arise, shine, for your light has come. The glory of the Lord has risen upon you." When I read those words, something leapt in my heart. I don't want to exaggerate it, but I don't want to underplay it either. Something came alive in me that told me I was in a divine moment. And I don't know how much time, I spent quite a bit of time just reviewing the first 18 verses of that chapter as the Lord shifted my perspective on how he saw the day that we live in. And I can say with absolute honesty, every day of my life has been different since that Thursday afternoon in May of 1979 because of what he opened up, what he showed me. He didn't just show me things. He changed my perception, my way of seeing in that chapter. Yep. What does he say? He says, you're the light of the world. By the way, Jesus, early in life, was identified as the light of the world, and then he went, tag, you're it. Yeah. So now you're the light of the world. Right? Obviously, the light isn't you. It's not me, it's Christ in us. So, make that clear. So here's this verse. A city set on a hill. When is a city on a hill visible with light? It's at night. Another easy question that you don't trust me to give me an answer, but it's all right. All right. Not foolish is the answer we're going with. All right. So when do you see a city that's all lit up? It's at night. You most likely see it when you're in need of shelter, food, connection, belonging. You see a city, and this is one of the times in Scripture where there's no going to preach the gospel. In this case, the city is stationary people come to the city. In the same way, we would come to a stream to drink water. We would come to a fruit tree to pick fruit. In the same way, we see a city set on a hill that cannot be hidden. And it is an attractant for those whose most basic drive in life is to belong. One of the most fundamental values that's woven into the heart of every single person is the need to belong. Listen, even the sexual drive, two shall become one. It's really the drive to belong. So here we have this picture, a city set on a hill. I always thought that when Jesus said we were the light of the world, that light is to expose stuff. Once again, that would be an implied or secondary truth. It's not the context that Jesus used. What was the context he used? Is that we are, number one, a community. Number two, because we are a community that belongs to one another, there's something of the nature of Christ illustrated in our relationship that has caused a light to shine that would attract people that are looking to belong, looking for nourishment. Maybe Georgian Banov is a great example. He escaped communist Russia, one of the countries there back in the day, and he came over here to California, couldn't speak hardly any English, but he ran into Jesus people that liked to feed him. And so they would just bring him home for dinner, and he would eat. And now one of the main evangelistic tools he has is he feeds thousands of people all the time. It's because it's what turned his life around, was being fed. And so some people will go to that city, honestly, just for a meal, if I can use that metaphorically. They're there for a meal, but something happens in the meal that happened to Georgian, where his life was completely transformed and changed. But the point is it's a community of people that belong together. There has to be something in the relationship that would actually attract people. It's not the gathering. This isn't the city on a hill. It's not that. It's how you do life with other believers. Maybe there's 3 or 4 of you in your office down at work, and the way you meet for lunch and you pray together. There's something in that connection that illustrates the life of Christ that's become practical. This is important, but it's not practical. It's not practical as it is displayed out in the public place, in workplace, in the neighborhoods, etc. Belonging. Hebrews 13 says, the sacrifice of the lips, fruit of the lips, gives praise to his name, number 1. Number 2, good works. Number 3, fellowship. And then it has this phrase that says, for with such sacrifices, plural, such sacrifices God is well pleased. All right, we know praise is to be a sacrifice. We know good works, how we serve and care and give for one another is to be sacrificed. But did you know fellowship was supposed to be a sacrifice? Too often, fellowship is the act of convenience. It's what we give as leftovers. And yet sacrifice is a step beyond convenience. And when fellowship becomes the sacrifice, the step beyond convenience, the light shines. The light shines that actually attracts people into a place of safety and belonging. One of the most fascinating things that I have seen or heard in recent years, I heard a friend of mine make this statement probably 5 years ago now. He said the disciples belonged before they believed. What a bizarre statement. So I really, it was one of those things that just really pricked my heart in a good way. I thought, that's amazing. So I started thinking, yeah, in fact, they traveled with Jesus for a while. He would perform some miracle, and they would look at each other and go, who is he? I mean, these are the guys, Matthew's sitting at his desk collecting taxes, and Jesus comes by and says, follow me. And he goes, yeah, of course. And he leaves his job. Peter and John, James, the guys are fishing, and they just leave their parents. They leave their dad's boat, their nets, everything. Jesus says, follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. Sounds reasonable. Yeah. All right. I'm just going to quit my job and I'm just going to follow. These people, there was something on the person of Jesus that they couldn't identify, but they immediately were willing to lay down everything to follow this. And even in the weeks and the months that followed, while they were completely overwhelmed by the miracles and the life on every word that he spoke, they still weren't sure who he was. And then there came a time where Jesus asked the question, who do people say I am? Some say you're John the Baptist. Some say you're one of the prophets. Who do you say I am? Peter says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. There came a moment where they knew who he was. And they were so grateful that they had stuck with it, in those times. But the point was they belonged. Do you understand that there are people in our community that have zero interest in Jesus? They want the peace that's in your house. They don't have interest. All they can think of is religious systems and belonging to some organization. They want nothing to do with that. But they are very interested in how your children are respectful to you, and they'll do anything to get that. And there's these kind of moments where we bring people into our lives. We let them taste and see that the Lord is good. And they then find the very thing they're looking for as a person who helps to make sense of it all. You're the light of the world.